right there.
Yeah, and you made me think of something that I told my girl the other day, and it was like the idea of like, because I feel like when you talk about like the next generation of people like making music like locally, or just like not even locally here, but just like on a ground zero level, like anywhere. I feel like there is not the same vigor and infrastructure of people like wanting to even like get into rap of like, because you gotta think, bro, like up until recently, everybody was pretty much getting introduced to rapping like relatively the same way. Like you listen to rap from the mainstream, you did it in your bedroom, you got up with niggas and freestyled
Right.
and found studio time and da. And now there's like this generation of like that doesn't have to do any of that
Right,
whatsoever.
yeah.
And so I was telling my girl, I was like, yo, like what do kids like want to be like aspire to want to be like when you talk about like entertainment shit? Like niggas used to want to be hoopers,
Right.
musicians, and you know that before you get into like adult shits,
yeah,
you know. And I'm like, what do kids want to do? Like they want to be streamers. Like I don't
Right.
be seeing kids like want to fucking like be the next Drake, Kanye
Right.
shit. Like we
Right.
were trying to figure out how to get
Yeah.
into, you know. So I just think it's interesting that like we did. And I say we, like the hip hop community did, as a collective, like did all of these things to like make it more accessible and create this culture and community. And I could just be out the loop. I could be completely wrong. There could be a whole bunch of 20-year-old niggas that are trying to take this shit further than we were trying to do, whatever the case may be. But I feel like I just don't even like see the infrastructure for that. Like TikTok and like social media is. But I use like locally as like a microcosm for that. Like I don't see, because there's only but so many venues here.
Right.
So I don't see them putting on shows like we were doing. I don't see, I got a younger brother. I don't see him talking about niggas that are other niggas in the city making music.
Right.
I don't see young videographers like shooting videos.
Right.
So it's just like interesting to see that there's just, at least from my perspective, there's not a desire to like, yo, I want to be the best rapper in the city. You know, I'm working on my pen. I'm trying to throw a show. I'm trying to get fans and da and all this type of thing. So it's just interesting, you know. And that really like, as somebody who's, how old am I? 33. As somebody who's like early 30s, I guess mid 30s. I guess 33 is mid 30s. I don't know, but it makes me want to make music more.
Okay.
You know, it doesn't discourage me. If anything, it's like, okay, cool. Like when I was 20 and I was in my looking to like being 30, I would be like, oh, I would be doing X, Y, and Z. I'm not doing that, and I'm not discouraged that I'm not doing that. It just like I have like just such a different perspective on like what to contribute to, you know, making music, you know, and like what that means for me now, you know.
Yeah, and I think that again, as I've been having these different conversations with people, I really been able to build on certain concepts and build on certain ideas. And you know, one of the things that I've talked to a couple of different people about is sort of sometimes you don't know when you're the person that's you're getting this, you know, you hear about music, you know, experience art, you get inspired to create music, you get inspired to create art. And I think at the very beginning of when you get inspired to create, you sort of always imagine that you're the person that's crossing over this bridge to get to somewhere else that maybe the people that came before you that introduced you to the art didn't get to, you know. I had older cousins, you know, that rap that introduced me to music. I had a couple older friends, you know, that rap that introduced me to music. You know, you never know which of your parents or your uncles maybe had certain musical aspirations, and they introduce you to certain, you know, music, or introduce you to certain movies, or introduce you to certain things. And at some point, they may have had the idea that when somebody was introducing them to these things, you know, they seen themselves as crossing this bridge to get to this point where now they're creating some of the things as opposed to maybe experiencing the thing. And you never know when you're the one that's going to cross over that bridge. So for the first like 10 years of your adulthood, when you're creating, you always imagine that the thing that you're creating now is the thing that's going to get you to cross over to that bridge. And all of these people that introduced you to these things were sort of building that bridge and helping you get to that point. And eventually you get to a place where either you sort of give up on doing that thing, and you give up on the idea of crossing over that bridge, and you sort of put that part of, you know, your life to the side, and you know, take other things or take other jobs or get other interests, and you know, you sort of fill that void up with something else, or you keep doing it, and eventually you become part of the bridge. You know, you weren't the person who was able to sell out, you know, the United Center, but you figure out how to book events. You know, you figure out how to, you know, you get your own venue. It might take you 10, 15 years to get your own venue, but you get your own venue. You get involved with helping a venue maybe get brought to the city that you in that's that didn't have that there. You know, you get involved with being a booker, and you figure out what it takes to book certain things and to get certain gigs booked. And maybe you go and you try to get gigs booked in Detroit, get gigs booked here and there, and you learn how the game go, and you don't ever get to the point where you know, at the United Center, but now you know how this game works. You got networks, you got connections. When your nephew start doing music, you know, you help him to get to that point earlier, you know, get to that point a little bit closer. Same thing with recording. A lot of people who, you know, record music at some point, you know, they wanted to make music or they wanted to produce music, and maybe they seen the idea that they would be in this big building with a bunch of different studio booths that they would have, and maybe they don't ever get to that point, but they continue to record music and continue to engineer, continue to figure out how to get certain sounds, and then when they nephew or when they cousin or when somebody a generation or two generations down the line start making music, they introduce them right to it. You know, go ahead.